So leaders by definition lead others. And although there are different levels of leadership, and some lead by force and rank, kind of like in the military, and some lead by virtue of who they are. And people just follow them because they like them and they believe in what they're doing. Um, and because just beyond, I'm sorry, um, because just beyond leading a journey to fight a battle or operation in business, uh, leaders can also have an opportunity to change lives. Leaders can influence you, not just at work, but also at home. And that's what we as leaders should venture to do. Today I brought on Jonathan Sheeley, founder of Sheeley Executive Coaching. And he's a business strategist, leadership coach, and a challenger of the status quo for those of you who like to challenge things. But today I brought him on to talk specifically about how leaders can impact those around them and leave a legacy that lasts well beyond when they're gone. And we're going to talk about the story of how he's gotten to where he is today as well. So Jonathan, thank you very much for joining me on this podcast. And to start off with, before we get into everything, what is one way that you have found that you can honor God in your business?
That's a great question. Thanks for inviting me, David. I think it's really easy for us to get lost in really big answers to that question. But the uh, the the best way that I know on a daily basis is understanding whether my purpose for that day is to glorify God or if it's to glorify myself. And it's really hard to decipher sometimes as a business owner myself. I own a consulting firm, so that's a small business, and it's easy to look at it as extending my own legacy for my legacy's sake as opposed to Christ's sake, and that is just a matter of being grounded, knowing every day that what I'm doing is motivated by a love for Christ and a benefit for others, and not a desire to grow my own fiefdoms wherever they are.
Okay, very good. It's not growth is a natural outcome of hard work, and it's not bad to grow, but yes, it's sometimes difficult to keep that in sight. But it's good to keep that in sight. Um, Jonathan, give us a little background, how your background and how God has led you to where you are today, coaching and consulting and things like that.
Yeah, it's great. I tell people that I got a bug for leadership development because the university that I worked at for 10 years, it was in the mission statement to develop leaders for the local church in the world. And so because of that, I just dove straight into as many resources as I possibly could on what did that mean. We had a way of defining that for the university that I worked at. But I needed to be able to do that for my team on the marketing team and for my recruiters who are on the road, and for the speaking engagements that I would be invited to all over the US. So I spent a decade figuring out what leadership development did look like and what it didn't look like in my own practice, in other schools. I was in 35 different states and hundreds of schools and churches in that time, and being able to see how some people do it well, and some people needed some assistance. When it was my time to move on from the university, it became a really natural progression of my career to take the things that I had learned as a director with dozens and dozens of people under me, and being able to report to the folks who are above me and say, you know what, this is not stuff that you just like grow up knowing. This is not something that you
Yeah.
just like wake up thinking, oh, blue is blue and leadership development looks like this. No, you have to learn this stuff. And so when I found that my favorite part of my job in those years in higher ed was when the light bulb came on and someone said, oh, I get it, I know how to do that now. And that doesn't mean that they did it always well, but now they know how. That was my favorite part. And so that was the impetus for me moving into the coaching and consulting space, because I want to see those light bulbs come on more often.
Yep. No, I get it. And that's where, yeah, it's a two-way street, isn't it? Because it gets them going, it gets you going. Um, have you found that as far as leadership, are some people naturally more leaders than others, or is this completely across the board learned?
Oh, I think there are some character traits that different cultures prioritize as being synonymous with leadership. I think charisma is the most misunderstood characteristic that is not synonymous with leadership. And uh, the leaders that I have found that are the most successful in the things that I would define as leaders are actually quiet.
Hmm.
They're the
Interesting.
ones that are steady and calculating and intelligent. And these are things that are character qualities that take time to develop. I think there are some character qualities that are less concrete that people know that they can trust you. And so as a matter of development, folks that are more trustworthy, they find themselves in positions of leadership. But I like to say it that way because people who find themselves in positions of leadership have a different leadership style than people who are aspiring to positions
Hmm.
of leadership. And I don't think
Interesting.
it's a bad thing to want to be a leader. I think the Bible talks about that in leadership of the church. But I think that there is a heart posture of I will serve. Those are the best leaders. And so those are things that you have to teach and train and become better at, not so much be born with them.
Very good answer. I always think of Saul and David. Saul looked like a king, head and
Mm.
shoulders above everybody. He's handsome and all this stuff, and everybody's like, "Ooh, wow, that's our king." But later on, you see his God's spirit left him, and his heart wasn't there. And um, David came along. David was the man after God's own heart, and it's like the first king the people wanted. The second king is who God wanted. And, it says David was beautiful and goodly to look at too, but that wasn't the only thing. It just
Mhm.
wasn't outward, it's inward as well. Um, you talked about leaving a legacy. In your definition, what does it mean to leave a legacy as a leader?
My wife shook me to the core one time we were driving, and we kind of shook out what this means for Sheeley Executive Consulting to leave a legacy. And we were talking about a particular company that had a good name, and she was like, the reason that I think that this company has a good name is because it's not just the employees that enjoy working there; it's the families of
Hmm.
those employees that like their loved ones working there. And I love that as like a pulse check. The legacy of a good company, the legacy of a good leader is that they aren't just impacting the team that is directly connected to them. So if you have a CEO of a medium-sized company, they probably only have 5 or 6 direct reports who then have, 15 to 50 direct reports who then, it just keeps going and keeps going. But the legacy is the further away that you get from that direct impact, the legacy doesn't change. The legacy of leadership coaching is that they have developed a strong culture, a strong sense of morality, a strong sense of purpose, and it continues down. It doesn't stop wherever they stop walking. It doesn't stop whenever they stop talking. And so ultimately that means the best leadership legacies continue after they're no longer in that company. And so the vision that they've casted and the processes that they've built, while they might need to update with new terminology for the new age, don't have to alter in substance because they continue to be the fiber of what it's meant to be solid moving forward. And that's
Very
not
good.
an easy thing to
Yeah,
do.
sure. No, I like what you said when you said their families enjoyed them working there.
Yes.
Because it's true. I mean, you can be happy at work, you can be not happy at work, and you bring that home, whether you like it or not. You bring it home.
I've found
Um,
that that's a pass fail. That's not an A B C F. It's a pass
Interesting.
fail.
Is it a hard pass, a hard fail, or just pass fail?
It's just pass
Interesting.
fail because you can get the sense of a conversation if you go to a holiday party and the
Okay.
spouses or significant others have been there, have been invited. You can tell. Just talk to the significant others and see how they respond. You can tell.
Hmm. Interesting. I guess that's because they come home and they talk about work and they
It
talk
is.
about whether it's positive or negative. So I remember doing that once. I came home, I switched jobs, and then it was a better job, and I didn't complain as much. And my family noticed. I'm like, I didn't
Mm,
think I was complaining. They're like, oh yeah, you complained a lot about that. Like, I guess I didn't see that, but they
yeah.
did.
Hmm.
Um, so, so what is an area or two that is a good thing, is helpful or a good thing to leave a legacy in? How do you do that?
I think businesses specifically, when they leave a legacy well in their community, that's to be praised. Um, I think it's easy for us to think of brands as disconnected from any geographic area that they are planted in or they're built on. And as a leader, it's disingenuous to not think of the direct community and the secondary communities that you impact with your services or your products. So yeah, we talk a lot about serving our clients well. We talk a lot about um, hospitality to the people who come through our doors. But what is the secondary and tertiary impact to your business? And how are you planning to make a positive impact on those areas as well? So, I my particular clients end up being in the medium sized company. So 50 to 250 employees. That's quite a bit of economic impact. And so if you have that many employees, they're living somewhere, they're grocery shopping somewhere, they're going to clubs, they're going to schools, and the impact that you have positively or negatively on all of those secondary and tertiary places can be significantly positive or it can be significantly damaging. And you don't always know immediately, but you can start to tell on the trajectory of a company on whether or not they burn through their employees. Well,
Mm,
it'll become a lot harder
gotcha.
to get new people if you burn through your employees. Well, if you have a great name in the community, it becomes really easy to have enough people in your queue to choose from. But then you have to start working on how do you develop more? How do you expand effectively so that you can serve better? I think if a business is focused on their impact in the long term, it will help them make their short term decisions easier. It doesn't mean that those decisions are not weighty. They're light decisions. They're still heavy decisions to make, but they're easier to make because you've already predetermined what kind of outcome you want for your customers, your employees, and the impact of your community.
Okay. This has come up before, so I'm going to just ask the question. What kinds of things can you do as a employer owner to mm, keep your people there? What kind of things are important to them that we may not know about, that in canvassing the people that they say, hey, this is really important to me in this company.
Well, I think just very fundamentally, knowing the calendar of events in your community is a really simple thing to know, and planning your work calendar around the calendar of your community. So if there's, for instance, you got a bunch of parents that have high schoolers and they have a homecoming game going on, it's really easy to not schedule third round 12 shifts on homecoming night so that all your parents have to work and they're really upset because they didn't get to see their seniors play homecoming night.
Gotcha.
Like that is a really intensely specific example, but I've seen the community size directly impacts what kind of actions you take. So maybe you have a bigger company that can't actually conduct their calendar around, but you can be listening to your people and say, you know what, um, hey, we know that there things come up, and so flexibility is a huge name of the game for keeping employees because they want autonomy, they want respect, and they want flexibility. So autonomy, give them a specific set of situation or a specific set of um, job things to accomplish, some articulated outcomes, and let them do it, and then let them tell you the best way to do it because they're the
Sure.
first person that has to accomplish it. Then they need responsibility. They need to be backed up. So when they say this thing needs to be done, double check it, go through the right means to checking whether that request is appropriate, but then support them that way. So support them in their job, but then also support them in their home jobs with flexibility, because it's a home job to be a mom or a dad. It's a home job to go home and pay the bills and keep the house updated and keep the car running and get your kids to where they're supposed to be on school. And so I like to talk about it as the home job, not just the home life, right?
Mm,
All of it
okay.
is life. Your job is your life and your home is your life. There's just the work job and there's the home job.
Okay. My wife would agree with that because she's like, I never get a day off because I'm working all the
It's
time.
fine. We don't
Yeah.
get PTO from being parents.
No, we don't. No, we don't. Anyway, that's another subject there. But those are great ideas about being flexible. I never thought about that. And as far as events coming in your workplace, um, and on that autonomy and empowerment, I know as a production worker, I've like that too, where my opinion actually matters. I can
Mhm.
help make things better. Um, so. Very good. We discussed this a little bit before. Um, it's interesting. I'm just going to throw the question out. Um, what do you feel is the attitude of mainline Christianity concerning money, prosperity, and wealth building?
Hmm.
As it Because we talk about companies, and sometimes they grow big, sometimes they don't. What do you think the mainline Christianity's attitude towards money and that is?
I think the easy single word would be confusion. People are
Mm,
very confused as to what they ought to think about money and wealth and value and growth. Because appropriately we see in Proverbs, we see in the Old Testament and some in the New Testament as well, that our perspective ought to be eternal and not temporal. And so we don't want to invest in those things that are moth and rust and that do corrupt. And so we hear and we maybe mishear the verse that says the love of money, and we reinterpret it as the it says the love of money is the root of all evil, and we misinterpret it to say money is the root of all evil. And this is a significant error, because the posture around money is what will make the difference in how it's used. And I distinguish in my practice the difference between wealth and money, because you can define wealth in so many non-financial terms.
sure.
I work at home, and so my two kids are at home. My wife keeps the two kids here. She educates my 6-year-old, and I have a 20-month-old daughter. And I would say that it's wealth. I'm a wealthy man when I get to hear my 20-month-old slap, slap, slap feet on the ceiling above me from the level above me in the house. That's wealthy. I'm a wealthy person to have a family, to have a house, and to have my kids close in proximity to me 6 days a week. Then I would also say that there's the financial responsibility of Christians to then say, all right, so if the money itself is not the problem, if it's the selfishness and the love of that money and investing in the money for the money's sake, if that's the problem, then what ought we to do? And I think it is a distinctly Christian thing to provide value for the world around us. Because guess what? Our God is a creating God. He created the earth for his own pleasure. And I think that we, as Christians, we enter into that same work of creating when we build businesses. We create value for the people around us. We create the opportunity with an environment of a workplace or with the products and services for other people to build their wealth when we do that. And we want the way in which we do business to be so distinctly not of the world's values that it's shocking that it works, because it doesn't make sense for a non-Christian to do business this way, but a Christian doing business this way thrives. And it's not like there's this cosmic promise that if you are a Christian and you have a business that you're going to be massively successful by the terms of the world. But that's the fundamental issue, is that we need to define our terms by kingdom values. So it may not be a really flashy thing, but if your business grows to the point where it has some employees, and your employees are very well paid and they have good benefits, and they're very they're comfortable being involved with their children's lives, and they can go to church on the weekends, that is a high value, high wealthy thing for you to do as a business owner. And God is pleased with that. God is pleased with you building a business that is creating wealth and financial resources for you. Because guess what? We're also commanded to give in the abundance of our resources. And you don't have abundance if you're not creating. You don't have abundance if you're not giving. You're not identifying that your financial resources are what you're able to give, or your culture is what you're able to give, your hospitality. You have to have resources for that. Building those resources is not a bad thing. It's when you use those resources for selfish and for earthly bound values that that is where you get off. And I could go on and on for that answer, for that conversation, for an hour, because I think it is something that has tripped up Christians for a long time. Having money is not a problem. Having money for having money's sake is a problem.
Yeah, and like I said, like you said, you could talk about that for a long time. I always think of from Proverbs. It says, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. When the
Mm,
wicked reign, the people mourn." And we've seen it
yes.
in our lifetime. The righteous reign, the wicked reign. So what do the righteous reign? The righteous reigning, they are wealthy, and they're using that wealth to benefit those under them. Um, I, I've learned Psalm 112, which talks about the blessed is the man who fears the Lord, who greatly delights in his laws. Talks about wealth and riches are in his house. But then later on it says he has distributed, he has given to the poor.
Mm,
He's distributed his wealth. Not that he gives all his wealth away, but he helps people out. You look at the Old Testament law that, if you see a brother in need, you help him out. And
yep.
that's what the righteous man does. He takes that wealth and helps people out, maybe help a startup get going or whatever. But yeah, I think it's a needed thing to revamp our view on wealth, that
Yep.
we're here to do good works with our wealth.
Right. Right.
Um,
Otherwise, we'd have been called home as soon as we accepted the Lord.
yeah, we're here for a bigger reason for that. So we talked about leaving a legacy, wealth, business, all that. Can you give us a couple simple practical steps that we can take as business owners to help build that legacy for our people to pass on
Yeah.
good things?
I think it's as simple as having a very clear vision for what you want to accomplish with your business. And I say that like that's some kind of easy thing to do, but it all starts with having a clear vision of the impact that you want and then working backwards from there. What does it take to get to that vision and being doggedly determined to get to that vision at whatever cost it has? That that determination and that specificity of vision will determine at some level your impact for the people who are around you. And maybe you've had a vision before and you've never made a plan to actually accomplish it. I think that is your next step. Make a plan. Maybe you've had a clear vision and you've never told it to anyone. Well, you need to tell some people that they're a part of that vision work as well. Maybe you've had a vision, you've had a mission, you've even communicated it, but you haven't made decision making through that lens of the vision a regular part of your business. Well, I think your next step is to be clearer on your decision making matrices on how you're going to do business in such a way that you can retire, you can hand off, you can sell your business and be satisfied that your efforts meant something because you were determined to have a specific outcome. Businesses are very good at having the outcome of income. But the problem with that is your income can be defined in many different ways. And if you only think about the return on your investment financially, you will lose your opportunity for investment in non-financial terms. But if you articulate that vision in the vastly different terms that you want it to make, that's what's going to make the difference. Have a vision, work towards the vision, and be determined to stick to that vision.
Yep, don't get distracted. That's really easy to get distracted. Um, Jonathan, how can we learn more about you if people want to learn more about consulting and coaching with you?
I'm always on LinkedIn. Find me on as Jonathan Sheeley on LinkedIn. Message me there. Follow me there. Follow my newsletter, Leadership Matters, or go to my website at sheeleyexecutiveconsulting.co.co. You can find the most recent work that we're developing as a company, and follow my newsletter for the different prompts as I build out different products.
All right, sounds good. Jonathan, thank you so much for your time and encouragement today, talking about leaving your legacy and just blessing those under you, and not just to use them, but to help them have a good life outside of work. I like the job work you talked about. Well, friends, your next steps to put into practice what you've heard is to check the show notes for links and sites and contact information for Jonathan. We'll put them in there. And sign up for a newsletter as well to receive Bible verses for business success to help you read and apply uh, the Bible and deliver right to your inbox. And remember that your business represents the great God you serve. So build a business worthy of God's great name and in a way that honors Him. Bye for now.